Hello, everyone. I would like to talk to you just for a few minutes about the biggest thing that has exploded onto the scene of the world in the last probably 6 to 12 months, which is artificial intelligence. The capabilities that this thing has is almost limitless, from creating images in any style, any genre, to songs and videos, and even write PhD dissertations, just at the drop of a hat. It can do it so quickly. This technology maybe existed in some limited forms a few years ago, but really it's in the last 6 to 12 months or in the last little while that it's exploded onto the scene. And that certainly impacts education. And I know there is an enormous temptation to say, oh, I've got a 7-page paper to write about Jesus and the kingdom, or about spiritual disciplines, or about, biblical exegesis, or whatever class you're taking. I know that the temptation is terrible to just say, I'm going to put in the parameters and AI will generate for me this amazing document in seconds, where it would take me, many hours of work. For my class, I'm going to require that nobody uses AI for anything. And that is within my parameters as professor to require. And I'm going to give you some reasons and principles to consider as to why. And some of this is on the honesty system. Now, I'm a pretty smart guy. I've done education for a long time. I've had lots of students before, and so I know how students write. I've got my own internal AI checker, but I also have tools at my disposal. I have AI that checks for AI. But I'm going to require that none of that is used in this class for a few reasons. First, I don't want you to use artificial intelligence for you to get your education. I want you to use your intelligence to get your education. Use real intelligence, the intelligence that God Himself hardwired into you. AI is a human creation, but you are God's creation. And I choose to believe that God didn't make a mistake when He made you, and He made you to grow. He made you to learn. He made you to be challenged. As a matter of fact, everything God does, just about everything God does, He does in stages and He does in processes. I mean, think about your own human body. You didn't start out as an adult the day you were born. Your mother thanks God for that. But you started as a baby, and you grew into a toddler, into a child, into an adolescent, and then into a fully grown adult. That was a process. Your education is a process. You start with A, B, C, and 1, 2, 3. And now you've gone through the process of preschool, kindergarten, elementary school, junior high, high school, all the way now to the university level. You didn't start at the university level the day you started preschool, or the day you were born. How about your relationship? If you're married, did you grew into that relationship with your wife? I've been married at the filming of this video for over 22 years, and I know my wife more, and I love my wife better 22 years later than I did when I first met her, or even when we were first married. Think of your relationship with God. You have grown so far in your relationship with God, but when you first started, you weren't as far then as you are now. There's a process of growth, but God has designed your body and your spirit and your soul and your mind and even your emotions and everything you are comprised of to grow and to be formed and to be transformed. And when you use AI, you say, well, I'm going to use this so I get a good grade in the class. If all you want is a good grade in the class, then that is all you'll get. And you will get nothing more. You won't get the challenge. You won't get the growth. You won't get the discipline. You won't get yourself wrestling through the thoughts of what do I believe and why do I believe it? Well, I'll just have AI. I'll just put in the subject matter. I'll put in the Bible verses and I'll say, do it all for me. And then I'll turn in and I'll get a good grade. But you never wrestled through the thoughts. You never wrestled with the theology. You never wrestled with God. As a matter of fact, that's one of my favorite passages in the Bible, when Jacob has come to the end of himself and he finds himself with God in the middle of the night and they are wrestling together. And it's clear from the passage that God could have finished that wrestling match with the snap of his finger, because at the end he said, God's like, okay, we're done. And he touched Jacob's hip, dislocates the thing, and boom, the all-night wrestling match is suddenly over. So why didn't God do that earlier in the night when God was obviously stronger? It's because Jacob had questions. Jacob had fears. Jacob had doubts. Jacob had learned to walk in a way in this life that was deceptive with people. It was damaging and destroying to people. And now his chickens were coming home to roost. And so God shows up in the middle of a terrifying situation. He's not sure if he's going to live or die. And he wrestles with God all night. That almost moves me to tears every time I read that story or I tell it, because God is good enough to let you wrestle with him and to grow, to cry out to him, to deal with your cognitive dissonance, to deal with things that you don't understand. And at the end of the Jacob story, when God touched his hip, it said Jacob walked with a limp for the rest of his life. Literally, his wrestling with God changed the way he walked before people and the way he walked with God. If you use AI to just skip through to the very end of the class, you don't do the reading, you don't do the learning, you don't do the wrestling with the subject material, you don't do the wrestling with God, you don't do the wrestling in your own soul, it will never change the way you walk. And all you will have at the end of your education is a piece of paper. That's it. The education at LPU is not to get a piece of paper. It's to wrestle with the issues. And AI doesn't let you wrestle with the issues. It doesn't let you grow academically or spiritually or in your own soul. It doesn't let you grow in your ability to write or to think critically or to speak. And so I'm asking that in the classes that I teach, the students do not use AI. I want you to wrestle with God. I want you to wrestle with the material. I don't even want you to take the textbooks from these courses and put it in AI and say, hey, summarize this for me. Do the work. Do the work, and you as a person will grow. Yeah, you can go through AI and you can get the books summarized. But if you do, you will not gain the knowledge. You won't gain the information. You won't gain the growth. And growing has to happen in its stages. You can't skip from a baby to an adult. You've got to go through the stages because each stage builds on itself. And if you do AI all through school, later on in your life or later on in your ministry, it will become evident to the people around you. It's like this guy or this girl, they don't know what they're talking about. Why? Because you skipped over the process. Don't just want a good grade. Forget the good grade. Get the education. Get the skills. Learn how to write. Learn how to think critically. Learn how to articulate. Years ago, I was teaching at another university, and during the class, I was talking about, I was talking about putting our best in, and one of the students raises her hand and she says, kind of joking, but she goes, well, professor, D's get degrees. I said, okay, D's get degrees, or even C's get degrees, whatever. And I said, okay, if that's what you want, then that's what you'll get. And this was a ministry-focused class, as many of the classes that I personally teach are more ministry-focused. So those of you who are in my classes are likely preparing for ministry. So I'll tell you what I told that young lady. I said, You're preparing for ministry, and God sees you in the secret place. God has given you an opportunity that many people in the world never get. You get to come to a university. You get to grow, and he's given you the ability, the mental faculties. He's given you the finances in some way or another and allowed you to be here. And you are preparing to serve him and his kingdom, right? She nods her head and says, yes. I said, God wants to entrust his church with you. He wants to entrust his kingdom with you. And if your mentality is D's get degrees, if all you want to do is skate by and do the bare minimum, and God sees you in the secret place, he sees the effort that you put in, and he sees the faithfulness or lack thereof that you put in, and you say, it's good enough to just barely slide under the doorway and barely make it with my piece of paper. I said, if that's your mentality of D's get degrees, then answer me this. Why on earth would God ever want to entrust someone like you with his kingdom and his bride? The answer is he won't. And he doesn't, and he wouldn't want to trust somebody like that. I wouldn't want to trust somebody like that with something that's the most precious, my church, my bride, my kingdom secrets, building on those whom I find faithful and trustworthy. God sees what we do, and he sees the effort that we put in, and he sees the heart behind it. And it's for these reasons I want to encourage you. Don't use AI. Don't use it for my class. If I find it in my classes, I will grade accordingly. But it's not about the grade, and it's not about the graduation, and it's not about the diploma. It's about the education, and it's about faithfulness, and it's about struggling, and it's about growing, because all of these things are designed to help you grow to be the person that God's created you to be. So that is my spiel on AI. There's actually a lot more to say about AI that is beyond the purview of this moment, but hopefully I'll get to address that at another moment. But God bless you, and those are the parameters for this class and the reasoning behind it. God bless you.